Hey everyone, I am Ladasma Irish Jean R, and we are Group 11. So for today's discussion is we will discuss about the Philippine history, and it's all about the social, political, economic, and cultural issues in the Philippine history. So it's all about the Philippine Constitution. So meet the team. Once again, I am Ladasma Irish Jean R. Second, we have Miss Locson Stacy Colleen SJ. Third or lastly, we have Miss Baglis Ira L. So, and it's all about the chapter 12, no? So, what we will discuss for today's discussion is these are the subtopics that we have. Number 1 is what is a constitution. Number 2, the 1897 Constitution of Biak na Bato. 3, the 1899 Malolos Constitution. 1899 to 1902. Fourth, Acts of the United States Congress, 1902 to 1935. Fifth, the 1935 Constitution, 1935 to 1943 and 1945 to 1973. Sixth, the 1943 Constitution, 1943 to 1945. Seventh, the 1973 Constitution, 1973 to 1986. 8. The 1986 Freedom Constitution, 1986 to 1987. 9th or last list, we have the 1987 Constitution, 1987 to present. So, that's all for our subtopic. So now let's start our discussion. So the first subtopic that we have is what is a constitution all about. So a constitution is the basic principles and laws of a nation, state, or social group, the people in it. It is a written instrument embodying the rules of a political or social organization. So the constitution, no, it lays the basic rules or principles that ito'y nag-guide para ma-function yung isang state or social organization. So, in short, the Constitution para to siyang rule of book na fina-follow ng state or social group, no? A constitution is the fundamental and encouraged rules governing the conduct of an organization or nation-state and establishing its concept, character, and structure. It is usually a short document lang. So, general in nature and embodying the aspirations and values of its writers and subjects. So, a constitution is a set of fundamental principles or established precedents according to the state or other organization is governed. These rules together make up, constitute what the entity is when these principles are written down into a single document or set of legal documents. Those documents may be said to embody a written constitution. So, these fundamental principles, ito'y nagde-define sa nature and extent of state or which state or organization is governed. So, additionally, if this set of fundamental principles or established precedents are written down in a single comprehensive document, it is said to embody a codified constitution. The oldest written national constitution is that of the United States. If we say codified, it is arranged or it is written in a formal way of system. Next, some constitutions such as the Constitution of the United Kingdom are uncodified. If we say uncodified, it is not arranged in a formal system way. But the United Kingdom or Constitution of United Kingdom, it is written in numerous fundamental acts of our legislature, court cases, or treaties. Next is the Constitution of India is the longest written constitution of any sovereign country in this world, containing 444 articles in 22 parts, 12 schedules, and 118 amendments with 146,385 words. in its English language version. So the most longest constitution that we have in this world is the Constitution of India. And on the other hand, the Constitution of Monaco is the shortest written constitution that we have. It is contains 10 chapters with 97 articles and a total of 3,814 words. So the most shortest constitution that we have in this world is the Monaco. So Monaco, under to siya sa country of Europe. So that is for the constitution. So the next subtopic that we have is the 1897 Constitution of Biak na Bato. On March 22, 1897, at San Francisco de Malabon, Cavite, where the first presidential and vice presidential election in Philippine history were held, although the election was only among the Katipuneros and not the general population. So the first presidential and the vice presidential election in the Philippine history were held at San Francisco de Malabon, Cavite on March 22, 1897. So this election is only for the Katipuneros lang and not the general population. Next is on November 1, 1897 at Biak na Bato in the town of the San Miguel de Mayumo in Bulacan. The Republic of Biak na Bato was established. The Biak na Bato Republic had a constitution, and that constitution drafted by Isabelo Artaco and Felix Ferrer, which was based on Cuban. The constitution was known as the Constitution Provisional de la República de Filipinas, or we can say that it is a provisional constitution of the Philippines. It was originally written in and promulgated in the Spanish and Tagalog languages. So this Biak na Bato, it is written by Isabelo Artaco and Felix Ferrer, and this Biak na Bato was borrowed lang from Cuba. And it is written originally in Spanish and Tagalog languages. So take note that this Biak na Bato is not fully or fully upon or pansamantala lang yung Biak na Bato. So this Constitution Provisional de la República de Filipinas, or Provisional Constitution of the Philippines. So this Provisional Constitution of the Philippines, it serves as the highest governing body of the Republic, and it outlines some basic human rights such as freedom of press, freedom to education, and freedom of religion. So that's all for the Biak na Bato. So the third subtopic that we have is the 1899 Malolos Constitution, 1899 to 1902. On January 20, 1899, at Barosain Church in Malolos, Bulacan, the Malolos Congress proclaimed, enacted, and ratified, which is the Constitution Politica or Political Constitution. This document was written in Spanish. So this political constitution, it established a framework of the first Philippine Republic of which declared the independence of the Philippines from the Spanish rule. So this Malolos Constitution, it was written by Felipe Calderon y Roca and Felipe Buencamino. So take note that si Felipe Calderon y Roca is known as the father of the Malolos Constitution. So the Malolos Constitution was the first Republican Constitution in Asia. So take note of that, the first Republican Constitution in Asia, which is the Malolos Constitution. So these are the some key features included in the Constitution. Letter A, it declared the sovereignty reside exclusive in the people. B, it stated basic civil rights. So it enumerates various civil liberties and protection for the Filipino people. C, PCC separated the church and the state. So they separated the church and the state because the Spanish, diba, they're the one who spread the Christianity here in our country. So they believe if they will separate the church and the state, because the church have its own practices, norms, and beliefs, while the state have its own principles, laws to be followed by the Filipino citizen. If they separate this church and the state, it can help to achieve or foster the freedom of recognition and all the beliefs, or it can help to respect all the beliefs of the Filipino citizen here in our country. Next is it called for the creation of an assembly or representatives to act as the legislative body. So, the assembly of representatives, no, if you say legislative body, it's serve as the governing entity. It's have its own ability or responsibility to creating or passing laws. So next, which is the last features that we have, is the call for the parliamentary republic as the form of government. The president was elected for the term of 4 years by a majority of the assembly. Say parliamentary, no, they are the same with the legislative body. So parliamentary republic, it's have its own responsibility to enforcing law or passing the law. So the president was elected for a term of 4 years by a majority of the assembly. So in today's political system, it is not applicable now, because in that era is the president, they have only 4 years to serve in their country. But in today's political system that we have, the president, they have 6-year term na to serve here in our country. So that's all for the key features, no, of the constitution of Malolos Constitution. So the Malolos Constitution was never fully implemented nationwide, and did not lead to internationally recognition due to the outbreak of the Philippine and American War. That's all for my report. Once again, I am Nadasma Irish Jean R, and thank you for listening.
Good day to each and everyone. I am Teacher Stacy Colloxon, and I will discuss more the Constitution. And for today's video, we will discuss about the Act of the United States Congress 1902 and 1934, since my co-teacher already discussed the Constitution. So now, from the year 1898 to March 24, 1934, do you know that the Philippines was a United States colony? Yes, you heard it right. So, during the year of 1898 to March 1934, under pa tayo sa jurisdiction of the federal government of the United States of America. So the United States Congress passed 2 acts during their period. So number 1, it is the Philippines Organic Act of 1902. So it was the first organic act of the Philippines. So number 2 is Philippines Autonomy Act of 1960, which I will discuss later. So, which can be considered informally as Philippines Constitution, in as much as this act defined the fundamental political principles of the land. So it established what? The structure, procedure, the power, and the duties of the Philippines government. So the third act of the United States Congress. So the third act is the tie-dyeing Magnifique Act of 1934. So this one, before they declared the Philippines as independence, tinupat muna nila ang tie-dyeing Magnifique Act of 1934. So this act provided a mechanism toward the creation and establishment of a formal constitution. So formal na ito. So ano nga ba ang Philippines Organic Act of 1902, aside sa ito ang pinakaunang na-establish sa Pilipinas na Organic Act. So, Philippines Organic Act of 1902, which known as the Philippines Bill of 1902, was the first organic law for the Philippines island, which I discussed earlier. So it provided for the creation of popularity elected Philippines Assembly and specified that legislative power will be vested in a bicameral legislature composed of the Philippines Commission, which means is the upper house, and the Philippine Assembly, it means the lower house. Its key revision included a Bill of Rights for the Filipinos and the appointment for 2 non-voting Filipino resident commissioners of the Philippines to represent the Philippines in the United States House of Representatives. So let's move forward. The Philippines Autonomy Act of 1916. So it is also known as the Jones Law. So Jones Law modified the structure of the Philippines government by removing the Philippines Commission as the legislative upper house and replacing it with a Senate elected by the Filipino voters. So ano nga ulit yung Philippine Autonomy Act of 1916? Ini-modified niya yung structure ng Philippines government para ma-remove yung Philippines Commission as a legislative upper house and ni-replace yun ng Senate na dumaan pa sa proseso sa pagboboto. John's Law was the first na nag-vote yung mga Pilipino in a formal way na dumaan talaga sa proseso. It also explicitly stated that it was and had always been the purpose of the people of the United States to the end and their sovereign over the Philippines Island and to recognize Philippines independent as soon as stable government can be established therein. So, before nga umalis yung mga Amerikano, they make sure that the Philippines will go in the process na i-move yung Philippine government by replacing Senate na dumaan sa proseso sa pagboboto. That was the first national vote sa Pilipino na dumaan talaga sa pagboto na formal. So ano nga ba ang tie-dyeing Magda-Phee Act of 1934? So through a not constitution itself, the tie-dyeing Phee Act of 1934, it provided authority and defined mechanism for the establishment of a formal constitution via a constitution convention. So now, tapos na tayo sa the Act of 1902, let's move forward to the 1935 Constitution. So 1935 Constitution to 1943 Constitution to 1945 to 1975. So the 1935 Constitution was written in 1934, approved and adopted by the Commonwealth of the Philippines. So it established on 1935 to 1946 and later on used by the Third Republic 1946 to 1972. It was written with an eye to meeting the approval of the United States government as well, so as to ensure that the U.S. would live up to its promise to grant the Philippines independent and not have a promise to hold on to its possession on the grounds that was too politically immature and hence unready for full and real independence. So yung Pilipinas, they make sure na malaya na talaga sila sa kamay ng mga Amerikano. So the original Constitution provided for an American National Assembly and the President was elected to 6-year term without re-election. Pero binago ito. So this was the 1934 Constitution pero binago siya, inamend siya sa during the year of 1942. If I'm right, yes, it's 1940. To have a bicameral Congress composed of a Senate and House of Representatives as well the creation of an independent electoral commission. So the Constitution now granted the President of 4-year term na lang with maximum of 2 consecutive term in office. So hindi na siya 6 years without re-election. So nakikita natin 4 years lang yung mga Pangulo sa mga upuan nila. So I hope you understand. So let's move forward, shall we? So now, let's move forward to the 1943 Constitution, 1943 to 1945. So during this year, may sumakop na naman sa atin, which is the Japanese. So Japanese are known for their ruthless acts to comfort women. So now, let's dip in. So the 1943 Constitution was drafted by a committee appointed by the Philippines Executive Commission. So the body established by the Japanese to administer the Philippines in lieu of the Commonwealth of the Philippines, which had established a government in exile in mid-1942, which is the year of Japanese colonization. Premier Hideki Toho had promised the Filipinos the honor of independence. So ano nga na promise ni Premier Hideki Toho? Is the honor of independence, which means the commission will be supplemented by a formal republic. So during this year, they prepared again another law. So the Preparatory Committee for Philippines Independence, tasked with drafting a new constitution again, was composed of members of the pre-war National Assembly and of individuals with experience as delegates to the convention that had drafted the 1935 Constitution. So their draft for the republic to be established where the Japanese occupation of the Philippines will be limited in duration, provide for indirect legislative elections, and a stronger executive branch. Upon approval of the draft by the committee, the new chapter was ratified in what year? After 1 year, which is kailan ba sumakop ang Japanese sa Pilipinas? In 1942. So, this year is 1943. Correct. By an assembly of appointed provincial representative of the Kalibapi, the organization. And so, it established by the Japanese to supplement all the previous political parties. Upon ratification by the Kalibapi, the organization, assembly, the Second Republic. So the Second Republic formally proclaimed in 1943 to what year? 1945. Jose P. Laurel was appointed as president by the National Assembly, the upper house, integrated into office in October, what year? October 1943. So siya yung presidente during the year of 1943. He was appointed here. So Laurel was highly regarded by the Japanese for having openly criticized the US for the way they ran the Philippines. So, and because he had a degree from Tokyo International University, so nag-aral siya sa Tokyo. So, the year of 1943 Constitution remained in force in Japanese controlled areas of the Philippines, but was never recognized as legitimate or binding by the government of the United States or of the Commonwealth of the Philippines and guerrilla organization loyal to them. In 1944, so the President Laurel declared a state of war existed. So, yung Pangulo ng 1943 to 1944, si Jose Laurel, dineclare siya ng war with the United States. So, and the British Empire and proclaimed martial law, essentially ruling by decree. His government in turn went into exile in December 1944. So, first to Taiwan and then the Japanese after announcement of Japanese surrender. So, na-surrender na dito yung Japanese. Laurel formally dissolved the Second Republic. So, the year 1943, Constitution provided strong executive power. So, the legislature consisted of unicameral National Assembly and only those considered to be the anti-US could stand for election. So, yung mga anti-US lang, yung mga ayaw sa mga Amerika, silang pwede mag-elect. So, although in practice, most legislature were appointed rather than elected. So, nilagay lang sila sa posisyon, imbes na iboto, idaan sa proseso. So, now, in the year of 1960, the Second Republic and its officer were not viewed as a legitimate Philippines government or heavy any stand, which mean hindi sila parang they are not view yung mga nakaupo as a legal as a Philippines government, yung mga nakaupo, yung mga officers. So with the exception of the Supreme Court, whose decision limited to reviews of criminal and commercial cases as a part of a policy of the creation by Chief Justice Jose Yulo continued to be the part of the official record. So this was made easier by the Commonwealth, a government in exile never constituting a Supreme Court. So in the formal vacancy in the position of Chief Justice, which is Jose Yulo, for during the Macapagal administration that a partial political rehabilitation of the Japanese era republic took place with the official recognition of Raul as a former president and the addition of his cabinet and the other officials to the roster of past government officials. However, the year of 1943, Constitution was taught in schools, and the law of the 1943 to 1944 National Assembly never recognized as valid or relevant. So, yung law na tinaga sa 1943 to 1944. So, during those years, sino ba yung na-colonize sa atin? Yung mga Japanese. So, ano yung mga na-establish nila ay hindi considera as valid or relevant. Thank you for listening. I hope you understand.
The 1973 Constitution. A constitutional convention was held in 1971 to rewrite the 1935 Constitution. The convention was stained with manifest bribery and corruption. Possibly, the most controversial issue was removing the presidential term limit so that Ferdinand E. Marcos could seek election for a third term, which many felt was the true reason for which the convention was called. So this constitution was nilalayon nitong baguhin ang 1935 Constitution ng Pilipinas. Ngunit nagkaroon ng mga kontrobersya kaugnay sa bribery o ito na tinatawag nating panunuhol at korupsyon sa proseso ng pagsasagawa nito. Constitution ng 1973 ay nagtatag din ng parliamentaryong uri ng gobyerno at binigyan ng mas malawak na kapangyarihan si Pangulong Marcos, lalong-lalo na nang ideklara niya ang martial law noong 1972 na nagpahintulot sa kanya na manatili sa kapangyarihan sa mahabang panahon. The 1935 Constitution was suspended in 1972 with Marcos' proclamation of martial law, the rampant corruption of the constitutional process providing him with one of his major premises for doing so. So, the 1997 Constitution, promulgated after Marcos' declaration of martial law, was supposed to introduce a parliamentary-style government. Legislative power was vested in a unicameral National Assembly whose members were elected for 6-year terms. The president was ideally elected as the symbolic and purely ceremonial head of state chosen from amongst the members of the National Assembly for a 6-year term and could be elected to an unlimited number of terms. Executive power was meant to be exercised by the Prime Minister who was also elected from amongst the sitting assemblymen. The Prime Minister was to be the head of government and commander-in-chief of the armed forces. This constitution was subsequently amended 4 times. From 16 to 17 October 1976, a majority of barangay voters, also called citizen assemblies, approved that martial law should be continued and ratified the amendments to the constitution proposed by President Marcos. The president would also become the prime minister and he would continue to exercise legislative powers until such time as martial law was lifted. The Sixth Amendment authorized the president to legislate on his own on an emergency basis. In the 1980 amendment, the retirement age of the members of the judiciary was extended to 70 years. In the 1981 amendments, the false parliamentary system was formally modified into French-style semi-presidential system. Executive power was restored to the president. Direct election of the president was restored. An executive committee composed of the Prime Minister and not more than 14 members was created to assist the President in the exercise of his powers and functions and in the performance of his duties as may prescribe, and the Prime Minister was a mere head of the cabinet. The last amendments in 1984 abolished the Executive Committee and restored the position of Vice President, which did not exist in the original unamended 1973 Constitution. So the end result was that the final form of the 1973 Constitution, after all amendments and subtle manipulations, was merely the abolition of the Senate and series of cosmetic recordings. The old Americans derived terminology was replaced by names more associated with parliamentary government. For example, the House of Representatives became known as the Batasang Pambansa or the National Assembly. Department became ministries, and their cabinet secretaries became known as cabinet ministers. With the President's assistance, the executive secretary now being styled the Prime Minister. Marcos' purported parliamentary system in practice functioned as an authoritarian presidential system, with all real power concentrated in the hands of the President, but with the premise that such was now constitutional. So let's proceed now to the 1986 Freedom Constitution. So this was 1986 to 1987. Immediately, the following 1986 People Power Revolution that ousted Marcos, President Corazon C. Aquino issued Proclamation Number 3 as a provisional constitution. It adopted certain provisions from that 1973 Constitution while abolishing others. It granted the President broad to recognize government and remove officials, as well as mandating the President to appoint a commission to draft a new, more formal constitution, often called the Freedom Constitution. This constitution was intended as a temporary constitution to ensure the freedom of the people and the return on democratic rule. So, this suggests that sa mga hakbang na ginawa ni Pangulong Corazon C. Aquino pagkatapos ng 1986 People Power Revolution na nagpatalsik kay Ferdinand Marcos, the Freedom Constitution of the Philippines was established by President Corazon C. Aquino on March 25, 1986 through Proclamation Number 3. This provisional constitution was implemented immediately after the 1986 People Power Revolution, which ousted Ferdinand Marcos and ended his authoritarian regime. So it was called the Freedom Constitution because it aimed to restore and guarantee the Filipino people's freedom and democracy after years of martial law and dictatorship. So the last constitution is the 1987 Constitution, which is 1987 to present. The Constitutional Commission was composed of 50 members appointed in President Corazon Aquino from varied backgrounds, including several formal members of the House of the Representatives, former justices of the Supreme Court, a Roman Catholic bishop, and political activists against the Marcos regime. The Commission elected Cecilia Palma, a former Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, as its president. Several was of particular contention during the Commission's sessions, including the form of government to adopt, the abolition of death penalty, the retention of U.S. buses in Clark and Subic, and the integration of economic policies into the Constitution. The Commission finished the final draft on October 12, 1986 and presented Aquino on October 15. The Constitution was ratified by a nationwide plebiscite on February 8, 1987. The structure and contents of the Constitution contains a preamble and 18 self-contained articles with a section numbering that resets for every article. The preamble introduces the Constitution and the source of sovereignty, the people. It follows the pattern in past constitutions, including an appeal to God. So the Article 1, National Territory. The national territory comprises the Philippine archipelago with all islands and waters embraced therein, and all other territories over which the Philippines has sovereignty or jurisdiction, consisting of its terrestrial, fluvial, and aerial domains, including its territorial sea, the seabed, the subsoil, the insular shelves, the waters around, between, and connecting the islands of the archipelago, regardless of their breadth and dimensions, form part of internal waters of the Philippines. Article 2, Declaration of Principles and State Policies, lays out the basic social and political creed of the Philippines, particularly the implementation of the Constitution, and sets forth the objectives of the government. Article 3, Bill of Rights, enumerates specific protections against the abuse of state power, most of which are similar to the provisions of U.S. Constitution. Article 4, Citizenship, defines the citizenship of the Filipino. Natural-born citizens are those who are citizens from birth without having to perform any act to acquire a perfect Philippine citizenship. Natural-born citizenship forms an important part of the political system, as only natural-born Filipinos are eligible to hold high offices, including all elective offices beginning with a representative in the House of Representatives up to the President. Article 5, Suffrage, mandates various age and residence qualifications to vote and a system of secret ballots and absentee voting. It also mandates a procedure for overseas and disabled and illiterate Filipinos to vote. Article 6, Legislative Department, provides for a bicameral legislature called the Congress, composed of the Senate and the House of Representatives. It vests upon Congress, among others, the power of investigation and inquiry in aid of legislation, the power to declare the existence of a state war, the power of the purse, the power of taxation, and the power of eminence domain. Article 7, Executive Department, provides for a presidential form of government where the executive power is vested on the president. It provides for the qualification, terms of office, election, and power and functions of the president. Article 8, Judicial Department, vests the judicial power upon the Supreme Court and other lower courts as may be established by law or by Congress, while the power to appoint justices and judges who still reside with the President may only appoint the nominees pre-selected by the Judicial and Bar Council, a body composed of Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, the Secretary of Justice, the chairs of the Senate and House Committees in Justice, and representatives from the legal profession. Article 9, Constitutional Commissions, establishes 3 constitutional commissions: the Civil Service Commissions, the Commission of Elections, and the Commission of Alto. Article 10, Local Government, pursues for local autonomy and mandates Congress to enact a law for the local government, now currently the Local Government Code. Article 11, Accountability of Public Officers, establishes the Office of Ombudsman, which is responsible for investigating and prosecuting government officials. It also vests upon the Congress the power to impeach the President, the Vice President, members of Supreme Court, and the Ombudsman. Article 12, National Economy and Patrimony. Article 13, Social Justice and Human Rights. Article 14, Education, Science and Technology, Arts, Culture, and Sports. Article 15, the Family. Article 16, General Provisions. Article 17, Amendments or Revisions. Article 18, Transitory Provisions. So that would be all.